What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So we have the latest update that is out there as it relates to the Saw franchise. You may recall roughly 14 days ago, news started coming out that the Saw franchise could be bought up, and in fact was bought up. And now and the reason why I'm coming back to this, as you see, this article was just posted a few days ago, well after we did the last story, and the last update was provided again roughly 14 days ago. And we've all seen when things like this happen, someone says, "Yep, we're going to buy it," or there's a buyer on hand, and it's just a matter of negotiations, and then things fall through, right? People can't come to the conclusion or come to an agreement on a final number. One feels they're owed more than the other. Some people don't want to spend as much money. So here we are, though. Blumhouse officially buys rights to Saw franchise, with Juan and Whannell rejoining the team. Now that should be some pretty good news. In my opinion, I think it's pretty good news that they're rejoining the team overall, because as we know, Juan is he was part of the Saw franchise originally, right? And obviously he's been separated from it for quite some time, and now with this purchase, it is a good possibility. There's a strong possibility that he could come back into the fold as far as where the Saw franchise sits. Now we all know we have 10 films, right? And we all know there was an 11th film that was in the works. We talked about that in previous news updates for this franchise. What we didn't know at the time, though, and as news started breaking, was that we first found out Saw 11 was canceled. But then as more reports started coming out, we found out that script had been completed and sitting for months and months, collecting dust. And it was really boiling down to the two parties who owned 50% ownership on both sides. Unnamed sources were coming out saying, "Hey, there's egos involved. No one wants to budge." And now that that film's canceled, and pretty much at the time, the Saw franchise is dead. As it currently sat, it was dead. Wasn't going to move forward in any way, shape, or form. That has now changed. So we're going to jump into the article details here and see what the final. I don't know if this is going to give us any numbers, but just where we're at finally now, and maybe have some insights as to, or maybe we can come to our own early conclusions on where the Saw franchise might be heading. So let's jump into these article details here. It was see right there. It was just 2 weeks ago, and we talked about this, and that's that 14-day time frame. That's that 2 weeks I was literally just talking about. It was just 2 weeks ago that the bombshell report came across our desk, with Deadline reporting that Blumhouse would be boarding the Saw franchise, and a fresh report from Variety this afternoon makes it officially official, while also providing some additional info. But first, a little bit of recap. And we'll recap this. We'll go through this. Again, we've covered this on past videos, and I think it'd be great if you go check out those videos and just see what our opinions are at the time of the news breaking. But we're obviously going to cover this right now. There's been a lot of talk about the future of the Saw franchise in recent months, with some suggesting that the franchise is dead in the wake of Saw 11 being pulled from the release schedule. Coming off a successful 10th installment, Saw 11 was set to release on September 26, 2025, but turmoil behind the scenes left the fate of the franchise hanging in the balance. And I said then, every time we've talked about this, I've said I feel like the Saw franchise needs to be done with, at least in its current iteration. The 10 films, I mean, we see this happen time and time again, and we see it with very specific franchises. And we have some modern ones that are really getting closer, like Scream is getting really close to being one of those franchises where I think they don't know when to stop. And I've said this before, even as you look behind me, I have a huge limited edition print of Michael Myers from Halloween that I had framed because he's my absolute favorite horror character. And even I don't fully agree that all the Halloween films that have been done needed to be done, were necessary. But it's not about what I think we need, don't need. The studios are going to put these things out because they know it's going to make money. If they know someone like me, you put a new Halloween film out, I'm going to go watch it. Absolutely. I love Michael Myers. I think he's the best horror villain, and I'm sure we all have our preferences. But if I also had to think of a Mount Rushmore of horror icon horror villains, he's absolutely the first one I'm naming. Absolutely, with no doubt. So again, I think, but for me though, Saw, I felt like Saw was a lot of rinse and repeat. after the first few films. Some people feel that the changes they make through each film is enough to keep them interested in it. And I think, hey, good. You do you. I'm happy you enjoy each film. I'm happy you enjoy the overall franchise. For me, though, there are some definite more misses than hits of the 10 films. So let's keep going. From what we understand, Twisted Pictures and Lionsgate had disagreements that spelled the end of the planned Saw 11 and temporarily left the franchise future in limbo. Correct, and that's what I was talking about, where we had the unnamed sources coming out saying that it's coming down to ego on both sides of the table, and that's really where it all fell apart, and Saw 11 eventually got canceled. So what changed? Lionsgate had owned 50% of the rights to Saw, while Twisted Pictures owned the other half, and Blumhouse has now acquired the portion of the rights that had been owned by Twisted. And I talked about this, I think, in the last update, where I think I was on the side of I could not see Twisted Pictures selling it, but I also said I think for the right price they absolutely would sell it, because look at the amount of money they've made with this franchise thus far. And maybe it's run its course with them, right? I know a lot of people are going to have a hard time moving forward and seeing a Saw film without the Twisted Pictures the icon logo popping up at the beginning of the film. But I mean, this happens, right? I think it's just part of the business. If they truly care about the Saw franchise, and they can't make any headway with Lionsgate, they get offered the right price for their 50%. Why not take the money, bow out, walk into the sunset, knowing, for the 10 films that you put out, the majority of the fans enjoyed them. You made a lot of money. You're gonna make a lot of money selling your 50% shares of this, and go start something new. Go start another franchise, right? All right, so let's keep going. With Lionsgate owning the other portion, Lionsgate and Blumhouse will now work together on all future films, shows, and other properties featuring the murderous, torture-loving Jigsaw. Let's keep going. What's particularly interesting here is the Saw franchise creators James Wan and Whannell will be brought back into the fold, helping to guide the future of the franchise. Quote, Saw holds a special place in my heart, Wan said. Coming back to this world with a fresh perspective is thrilling and deeply personal. For me, this will mark a significant creative return to the franchise for the first time since the early days, and I'm very much looking forward to embracing the original spirit whilst pushing the legacy forward in bold, unexpected ways. And then it just says, stay tuned as we learn more. And I think that's pretty much where that's where it's going to end. So, and again, this is another point I've mentioned previously. Because I think the last time we talked about this, Blumhouse was, pretty close to saying, hey, yeah, we're going to do this. With now James Wan, part of this now, part of Lionsgate, his production company now brings him closer to the Saw franchise. I could see him being the one that's directly involved in rebooting this franchise. I don't see them continuing. I don't see them moving forward with a Saw 11 or Saw whatever the next film would be called. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with the sequence of films we've seen thus far. I think if they do anything further with the franchise, they're either going to fully reboot it, and if they happen to do another Saw film to coincide with the existing 10, it will be to close the book on it, to tie off any loose ends, call it a day, and then they're immediately going to move into a reboot. Or, in my opinion, they'd be better off just doing that now. They'd be better off just saying, hey, 10 films, they're in. We obviously didn't get the 11th film out this year. That script has been sitting collecting dust for 7-8 months now. Let's move on. We have new ownership. James is back. Let's get him involved, and let's just start something fresh, right? I think that's going to be their best bet. I don't think a lot of fans are going to like that. I think they're going to want to see either some closure from the previous, or to have that continue on from the previous. But we're in an age of reboots and remakes as is, and you're already at 10 films. Either reboot it and move on, and hopefully it makes as much money, which I think it will still garner the fan base to come in who are Saw fans, or you've purchased it, now let it sit. Work on maybe 4K releases, or or doing special editions with a bunch of like the behind the scenes bonus features, special features, things of that nature, right? Something of that nature. If you don't want to continue it right now, I think there's still a lot of money that can be made off the original 10, especially if you bump them up to do like a box set, like a 4K release box set of the first 10 films. I mean, we've seen box sets from Halloween and other franchises as well. I think maybe that's a way for them to still make money off the franchise while they get everything in order on how they're going to proceed with the franchise. Something I don't think I wouldn't. One more thing, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it, because we're getting a Carrie TV series, we're getting a Camp Crystal Lake TV series, potentially called now Mama's Boy TV series. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide, hey, in the meantime, in order to keep the wheels turning, let's do a Saw TV series. 8 episodes, 10 episodes, whatever, to keep the fans engaged, to keep the fans interested until we decide how we're going to proceed from a feature film perspective. So those would be my 3 scenarios and how I would think this is going to play out. Reboot it, four. Reboot it, start over, let it sit for a while, don't do anything, which I don't think that's going to be an option, because they just spend who knows how much money to put this out there. So TV series or whatnot. So anyways, that's going to do it for this horror news update. Blumhouse now officially owns 50% of Saw. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think, how you think this is going to play out. Also, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.